What's up, everybody? And welcome to another edition of High Mythology, the show where we get higher than a sticky goose in flight. I get higher than a sticky goose in flight. And we tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore.
Kind of high. Secondhand high.
Tonight, we will be bringing you a tale of two geese. Starting with the story, The Marvelous Marvel.
No?
The Wondrous Wonder, The Marvelous Marvel.
There you go.
And then, moving on into Taper Tom, Who Made the Princess Laugh. Yeah. So, hope you guys like geese. Because it's about to get goosey up in this motherfucker. Yeah. And they're coming from, respectively, what is it, Russian?
Yeah, the first one's from Russia, the other one's from Norway.
Yeah. So
Two different areas.
Two different areas. Very similar. You guys will see some similarities, but they're both pretty funny little goose tales. So, yeah. Without further ado, Kimbo, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Once, there was a wealthy merchant who traded in rare and precious goods, traveling with his wares every year to foreign lands. One day, he fitted out a ship, made ready for his voyage, and then said to his wife,
"Tell me, my joy, what shall I bring you as a gift from foreign lands?"
The merchant's wife answered,
"In your house, I have everything I could possibly want. If you really want to gladden my heart, bring me a wondrous wonder, a fucking marvelous marvel, okay?"
And he said,
"Very well. If I find one, I shall bring it by. I shall buy it, and bring it by."
The merchant traveled beyond thrice 9 lands to
thrice 9,
10 kingdoms.
Thrice 10.
Because that's how the Russians talk,
Yeah.
He sailed into a great and wealthy port, sold all of his cargo, and bought a new one, and then loaded his ship. He walked through the city and thought,
"Where shall I find a wondrous wonder, a marvelous marvel?"
Then he met an old man who asked him,
"What are you pondering about? What makes you so sad, my good young man?"
He replies,
"I can't help but be sad. I'm looking for a wondrous wonder, a marvelous marvel to buy for my wife. But I do not know where to find one. Because it's a very vague thing that she asked me for. I mean, give me some credit here. It's like, ask for a fucking necklace, I'll get you a necklace or something."
And the old man says,
"Ah, you should have told me so in the first place. I am a specialist in vague things. Come with me, I have a wondrous wonder, a marvelous marvel. And since you must have it, I'll fucking sell it to you. I am not just a salesman giving you a pitch either. You can trust me."
And so the old man led the merchant to his house and said,
"Do you see that goose walking in my yard? That random just goose?"
The merchant replies,
"Yes, I do."
The old man replies,
"Now watch what happens to it. Hey, goose, get the fuck over here."
And so the goose came into the room. The old man took a roasting pan and again spoke to the goose.
"Hey, goose, lie down in the roasting pan."
And the goose lays down in the roasting pan. The old man put it in the oven, roasted the goose, took it out, and set it on the table. Then he said to the merchant,
"Now, merchant, let us sit down and eat. Only do not throw the bones under the table, and instead gather them all in one big pile."
And so they sat down at the table, and between them ate the whole goose. Then the old man took and picked the bones, wrapped them in a tablecloth, and threw them on the floor, and then said,
"Hey, goose, get your ass up, or shake your wings and go out into the yard. Do yard stuff."
So the goose gets up, shakes its wings, and goes out into the yard as if it had not ever been in the oven.
"Stop doing that, old man. I don't like that."
The merchant says,
"Indeed, my host, yours is a wondrous wonder, a marvelous marvel."
And begins to bargain with him for the goose, which he finally bought for a high fucking price. Then he took the goose with him aboard his ship and sailed back to his native land. He returned home, greeted his wife, and gave her the goose, and told her that with this bird she could have a roast every day without spending a penny. He says,
"Just roast it, and it will come back to life."
The next day the merchant went to his stall in the bazaar, and in his absence his wife's lover came to see her.
Oh, bum, bum, bum.
She welcomed him with a great joy,
Oh,
and
yes.
offered to prepare a roast goose for him. She leaned out the window and called,
"Goose, come here.
so the goose came into the room.
Goose, lie down in the roasting pan."
But the goose refused.
Meh.
The merchant's wife grew angry and struck it with the roasting pan, and as she did so, one end of the pan got stuck to the goose, and the other to her. It stuck so fast that she could not in any way pull herself loose from it. She cried to her lover,
"Oh, sweetheart, wrench me loose from this roasting pan. That accursed goose must be bewitched to something."
So the lover grasped the merchant's wife, and with the two hands to wrench her loose from the roasting pan, but he himself stuck to her. The goose ran out into the yard, and then into the street, and then dragged them both to the bazaar. The clerks saw their plight and rushed forward to separate them, but whoever touched them got stuck to them. A crowd gathered and looked at this wonder, and the merchant came out of his stall too. He saw that something was wrong. Who were all these new friends of his wife? He yells,
"Confess everything, otherwise you will stay stuck like this together forever."
There was no way out of it. The merchant's wife confessed her guilt. Then the merchant pulled them apart, soundly thrashing the lover, then took his wife home and gave her a good hiding too.
And the goose just stood there and watched and nodded, just like, "Meh, meh, yeah, meh, meh."
Every time he hit his wife, he repeated with each blow.
"Here is your wondrous..." I forgot about this. "Here is your wondrous wonder, your marvelous marvel."
That was the end.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel?
Yeah, that I feel like that's why you don't bring another man into your house when you have a magic goose watching over, because, yeah. And another thing that people should know that is a fact is geese are always watching you.
Always. They're fucking creepy.
Be on the lookout.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Second one.
Well, yeah, on to Taper Tom, who made the princess laugh.
This one is Norwegian. By the way. The last one was
Norwegian. Oh, some Norwegian folktales, yeah. I like.
There was once a king who had a daughter. She was so beautiful that she was known both far and wide, but she took herself so seriously that she could never laugh. And then she was so haughty that all she could do was say, no, to everyone who came to court her. No. We had a great time with that one. She would not have anyone, no matter how fine, whether he was a prince or a gentleman. The king had long since tired of this and felt that she should get married like all the others. She had nothing to wait for. She wasn't old enough, nor would she be any richer either, for she was to have half the kingdom, which she inherited from her mother. Let's be honest here. Mom.
I married into royalty.
So the king had it proclaimed from all of the pulpits in the land, both quickly and soon,
Get on your
that
pulpit.
the one who could make his daughter laugh was to get her and half the kingdom. But if anyone tried and failed, he was to have 3 strips cut out from his back and salt rubbed in.
3 strips, and then we'll rub it with Himalayan pink salt.
And it's certain that there were many from east, west, and even south and north. And they all believed it would be an easy matter to make the king's daughter laugh. The queer folks fellows come too.
Oh, the queer folks fellows. Ah, those guys.
But for all the monkeys there were, and for all the monkey shines they got, the king's daughter was just as gloomy and serious as ever.
No.
Close to the king's manor there lived a man who had 3 sons. They also heard that the king had proclaimed that the one who could make his daughter laugh was to get her and half the kingdom. The eldest wanted to set out first, so he rushed off. Zoom.
Bye.
And when he came to the king's manor, he told the king that he wanted to try to make the princess laugh. He says to him, the king says to this boy,
"Well, to be sure, but it would be of little use, my man, for there have been many here who have tried. My daughter is serious.
super serious.
Super serious. She doesn't laugh at any of my gags. This is of no use, and I don't like to see any more get into trouble, but I will take skin off of your back and rub salt in it."
But the boy felt it would be of some use. It couldn't be so much trouble to make the king's daughter laugh for him, for both highborn and lowborn had laughed at him so many times when he had served as a soldier and drilled under Niall's sergeant.
Oh, power bottom.
Ew. So he started marching up and down outside the princess's window, doing all the mistakes that he used to do as a recruit. But it didn't help. The king's daughter was just as gloomy and serious. So they took him, cut 3 broad strips out of his back, and sent him home again.
Oh, yeah.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. Get out of here with your back strips.
When he had come safely home, the second son wanted to set out. He was a schoolmaster and a strange figure of a man at that as well. He had legs of unequal lengths. And with that, a vengeance, I guess.
And with that, a vengeance!
One minute, he was short as a boy, and then he stood up on his long leg and became as tall as a troll. He was really a champion at running, too.
Look at me run!
But she looked really fucking weird. Yes, he too set out for the king's manor and said that he wanted to try and make the daughter laugh. That wasn't all unlikely, thought the king, and said,
"But heaven help you if you don't, for we cut the strips broader for each guy that fails."
So the schoolmaster strode out onto the field, and there he placed himself outside the princess's window. And he preached and said mass like 7 parsons, and read and sang like 7 Saxtons, who had all been in the parish there. The parish.
The parish. Now he's doing impersonations. That's an old school trick. You always open with some impersonations if you got them. You know what I mean?
He's doing improv.
Yeah, he's doing some. Yeah.
The king laughed so that he had to hold on to the porch post. And the king's daughter almost cracked a smile, but she caught herself quickly and just said, "No." She was just as gloomy and serious again. And so it went no better with Paul the schoolmaster than it had with Per the soldiers. For they were called Per and Paul, you might know.
You might know. That's something you might know that.
They took him and cut 3 strips out of his back and then rubbed salt. Then they sent him home again.
Jesus. It's like so comedic up until the point where it's all of a sudden not. Like, oh, look at the guy. He's goofy. He almost made us laugh, but he didn't. Now take him downstairs and cut 3 strips from his back and rub salt into his wounds so he never forgets his failure. Ho-ho! Like, oh, God, the king has some mental problems, I'm pretty sure.
Then the youngest wanted to set out, and that one was Taper Tom.
Taper Tom!
But the brothers laughed at him and made fun of him and showed them their sore backs. And their father wouldn't let him go, for he said that he couldn't be of any use for him, who had no sense. What a great dad.
Yeah. Tom, I'm just going to let you know right now, you were an afterthought. Me and your mother did not want to tell you this.
We didn't plan for you.
You kind of came out just like, your brothers are good, but you kind of just came out like, ah.
Really? Because one of them has one long leg and
I
one
mean,
really short leg.
We take the long, short guy. We value him more than you, so that should say something, Tom.
Taper Tom knew nothing and did nothing, but only sat by the hearth like a cat and poked at the ashes and whittled pine cone coaches.
Hi.
But Taper Tom didn't give in. He nagged and whined so long that they grew tired of it. Please.
We'll go.
And at last, he was allowed to go to the king's manor and try his luck. When he came to the king's court, he didn't say that he wanted to make the king's daughters laugh, but asked if he can get a serving job there.
Yeah.
No. No. They had no serving jobs for him, but Taper Tom didn't give up. They certainly could make use of him as one who would carry wood and water to the kitchen maids on such a big farm. And the king didn't think that he could be so unlikely and was pretty well tired of Taper Tom's whining too. that he at last gave Taper Tom a place to stay and made him carry wood and water to the kitchen maids. Nobody likes this fucking crybaby Sally. They're all fucking annoyed with him. Sounds like the princess.
Yeah. We're like meant for each other, though. We're both super whiny.
One day, he was fetching water from the brook, and he caught sight of a big fish lurking under an old fir tree root, where the water had washed away the earth. But he put his bucket carefully under and caught the fish. But on the way back to the king's manor, he met an old crone who was leading a golden goose. He says to her,
"Hey, grandmother, that's a fine bird you have there, and such splendid feathers. They shine a long way off. If one had such feathers, there'd be no need to whittle pine torches."
And so the old woman thought,
This whiny motherfucker.
So the old woman thought just as well of the fish Taper Tom had in his bucket. So she said that she would give her if he would give her the fish, he could have the golden goose. Doesn't sound like a fair trade really to me. Whatever. And the goose was such that if any person so much as touched it, he would be stuck fast to it. If Taper Tom says the words, "Hang on if you want to come along." Well, Taper Tom wasn't quite willing to swap. Or he was quite willing to swap and says,
"A bird is just as good as a fish, and if it's the way you say, I can easily use it as a fish hook."
And so the old crone was well pleased with the goose.
Goose.
He hadn't gone very far when he met an old woman. And when she saw the fine golden goose, she had to come over and touch it. So she made herself nice and sweet and then asked Taper Tom if she could pet his pretty little golden goose.
"Can I pet your goose?"
Taper Tom says,
"Hang on if you want to come along."
No.
Oh, all right, but you mustn't take any of her feathers. Got ahead of myself.
That very moment, she put her hand on the goose. Then he said,
"Hang on if you want to come along."
And so the old woman pulled and tugged, but she had to hang on whether she wanted to or not. And Taper Tom walked off as if he were alone with the golden goose. When he had traveled a little farther, he met a man who had a score to settle with the old woman for a trick that she had played on him.
That's fucking Tina.
And when he saw her struggling so hard to get loose and understood that she was stuck fast, he thought he could safely give her a blow. And so he gave her a swift kick in the butt with one foot. But Taper Tom just cried out as soon as he made contact,
"Hang on if you want to come along."
And the man had to follow along and hop on one foot, whether he wanted to or not. So he was like, got his foot on her bum and hopping about.
Stuck.
When he pulled and struggled and wanted to get loose, it was even worse, for then he had nearly fallen over backwards. Now they tugged along for a good while until they were close to the king's manor. There they met the king's blacksmith. He was on his way to the smithy and had a big pair of tongs in hand. The smith was a jester, who was always full of fun and rascally tricks. And when he saw the precision come hopping and hobbling along, he almost doubled up with laughter. But then said,
"This must be a flock of geese for the princess. Now who's Gander and who's the goose? That must be the Gander, the one who's jogging along in front. Goosey, 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 goo."
He called out and threw out his hand as if he were scattering corn to the geese. But the procession did not stop. The old woman and the old woman and the man just glared at the smith for making fun of them. So the smith says,
"It would be fun to hold back the whole flock of geese, as many as there are."
For he was a strong man, and so with his tongs he grabs hold of the man by the seat of his breeches with his
Pinch
tongs.
that ass.
And the old fellow began to shout and wriggle. But Taper Tom says,
Hang on if you want to come along.
and so the smith had to go along. And all for he had bent his back, and to dig his heels into the ground and wanted to get loose, it helped not one bit. He was fucking stuck fast, as though he had been screwed into a big anvil at the smithy. And whether he wanted to or not, he had to dance along.
Oh, yeah.
When they arrived at the king's manor, a watchdog flew at them and started barking as if they were either tramps or thieves. When the king's daughter looked out of the window and saw what was going on, she caught sight of the gang of scarecrows. She bursted out laughing. But Taper Tom wasn't satisfied with that. He says,
"Wait a minute, and she'll soon be splitting her sides."
And turned back to the king's manor with his procession. As they came past the kitchen, the door stood open, and the cook was busy stirring the porridge. But when she caught sight of Taper Tom and his flock, she rushed out the kitchen, with a ladle in one hand and a pot of steaming porridge in the other, and laughed until she shook. And when she saw that the smith was along, she slapped her thighs and screamed with laughter. But when she had her laugh really filled herself with laughter, she also thought that the golden goose was so fine that she had to go over and stroke it. She cried out,
Taper Tom, may I come over there and stroke your lovely bird?
The smith quickly replies,
Let her stroke me instead. Whoa, hey.
Taper Tom says,
So I will. Go for it.
But when the cook heard that, she became angry. She says,
What's that you say?
As she shrieked and swung at the smith with her ladle. Taper Tom quickly says,
Hang on if you want to come along.
And so she stuck fast too. For all she scolded and for all she tugged and tore, and as wild as she was, she had to hobble along. But when they came outside the front window, the princess stood and waited for them. She saw that they had the cook along, with both ladle and pot. She burst out laughing and laughed so hard that the king had to hold her up. And so Taper Tom got the princess and half the kingdom, and they held a wedding so grand that it was the talk of the whole land.
The whole land was
Feel bad
talking.
for the king. That's his fucking son-in-law. Fucking bitch.
He's just like, every day I think about jumping out the window. But at least I now have a goose friend. Bum, bum, bum.
So those are my two goose stories. Do you think we have time for one more?
Tale of Two Geese, right there. You think? I think we have time for one.
It's not
more.
A goose story, but
It's not a goose. It's not a goose story.
It's called The Fox Physician.
Oh, I think the people would want to hear that. What do the people think? What do you think, people? It sounds like the people on the virtual soundboard really want to hear it. So hopefully the people at home do too.
Just one more.
Just
to
one
make it a
more
nice
little one.
short.
Let's do it. Plus, who doesn't want to hear about a fox physician?
Yeah.
Like,
Talking fucking fox, dude.
Is it a
that
good doctor?
That doesn't fucking concern anyone? Really?
Yeah.
All right. So once upon a time, there was an old man who lived with his old wife. The husband planted a head of cabbage in the cellar, and the wife planted one in the ash bin. The old woman's cabbage withered away completely, but the old man's grew and grew until it reached the floor above the cellar. Then the old man took an axe and cut the hole right over the cabbage. And again, the cabbage grew and grew until it reached the ceiling.
That's
cabbage.
That is cabbage. That is cabbage out of control.
Oh, I should probably also explain. This is Russian.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's why we got the cabbage.
And again, the old man took an axe and cut a hole right above the cabbage.
Russian accent ever.
That was. But I wasn't going to judge you.
Yeah, I'll give myself.
Sorry,
sometimes that happens. That's Vidania.
Again, the cabbage grew and grew until it reached the sky. How could the old man look at the top of his cabbage now? So he climbed up the stalk until he reached the sky. He cut a hole in the sky and climbed out there. He looked about him. Millstones were standing all around. And whenever they gave a turn, a cake and a slice of bread with sour cream and butter appeared. and on top of these was a pot of gruel.
Gruel.
Fucking weird. Cut a
Dave
hole in
Gruel?
the sky. And I'm just gruel, man.
Just gruel.
The old man ate and drank his fill and then lay down to sleep. When he had slept enough, he climbed down to the ground and said to his wife,
Old woman, what a good life one leads in heaven. There are milestones in there, and each time they turn, one finds a cake, a slice of bread with sour cream and butter, and on top, a pot of gruel. Oh, how can I get there, old man? Sit in the bag, old woman, I will carry you there.
And so the old woman thought for a while and then seated herself in the bag. The old man took the bag into his teeth and began to climb to heaven. He climbed and climbed, and he climbed and climbed for a long time. The old woman grew weary and asked,
Is it fall still, old man? I mean, are we there yet? It's still far, It's still far, old woman.
And again he climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed. She said,
Is it are we fucking even anywhere near close? I mean, I think I've had to piss for like the last 3 hours. I'm ready to get out of this bag. Nope, still halfway to go.
And again he climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed, and the old woman asked a third time,
Come on. I mean, come on. Are we even like, what's the fucking deal? What's the holdup?
He was about to say, not far, when he dropped the bag out of his teeth, and the old woman fell to the ground and was smashed to bits. The old man climbed down the stalk, picked up the bag, but in it were only bones, and even they were broken into little pieces.
Ouch.
So the old man set out for home, weeping bitterly. On his way, he met a fox, and she asked him,
Why are you weeping, old man? I can't help weeping. My old woman has been smashed to pieces. Calm yourself. I will heal her.
And so the old man threw himself at the fox's feet.
Heal her, please. I will give you anything you ask in return. Well, then heat up a bath. Put on a bag of oatmeal. I thought that said crack. And some crack and butter. Put the old woman beside it and then stand behind the door. But don't look in, or you'll see a crack-addicted fox doctor.
The old man heated a bath and brought what was called for and stood behind the door. The fox entered the bathhouse, latched the door, and began to wash the old woman's bones. Well, actually, she did not wash them so much as she licked them clean.
And started smoking. She smoked the crack and then licked the old woman's bones clean.
From behind the door, the old man called,
How's the old woman? She is stirring.
and so she finished eating the old woman, gathered the bones together, and piled them up in the corner and began to prepare a hasty pudding. The old man waited and waited, and then finally called out,
How's the fucking old woman, Fox? She is sitting up.
and then spooned the rest of the pudding.
Oh my god, I just got that.
Yeah.
That's a she is setting up.
And as she spooned up the rest of the pudding, when she was finished eating, she said,
Old man, open the door wide.
And so he opened it, and the fox leaped out of the bathhouse and ran home. The old man entered the bathhouse, looked around, but all he could find of his old wife were her bones under the bench, and even they were licked clean. The oatmeal and butter were gone, and the old man remained alone and in his misery.
Man, that shit's cold.
It's Russian.
So cold.
Well, they're in Russia, so of course it's cold.
They're in Russia. Yeah, look at the old man. Look at him.
Well, why would you
how
fucking put
sad he
her
is.
in your teeth? Why not just wrap her around your back? I feel like that's like another Anansi
That's the worst.
problem.
That's the worst way to carry anything.
in your
Like,
teeth. Yeah. Well,
I'm
of
a
course.
full-grown man, and I've got 2 hands.
But also, shouldn't the lesson learned be like, stop asking if you're there yet?
That's actually,
Just
that's
fucking
one
be
of those,
patient.
like, definitely one of those where it's like, the lesson of this story is, calm your ass down.
Patience.
Patience, motherfucker. Because if you rush someone, a fox will eat your old lady. Oh my god, I can't believe that it took me a minute to get the stirring and fucking setting.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
She's
made her into a
stirring.
pudding. How's she doing? She's setting. Yeah, just let her set for a minute. This pudding's about to be 8. Yeah. Oh, damn. Well, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this Tale of Two Geese.
And this weird fox story.
And bonus fox story. So yeah.
Yeah.
Every once in a while we like to do that. Throw in a little bonus at the end. Our sources for these for all these stories, Norwegian folktales. We've dropped that one before. Peter Christian Abjornson and Jorgen Moe. Boom, motherfuckers. First time I got that right in like 3 episodes. And then, yeah.
The first and the last one were done by this other book.
Yeah, Russian. It's called Russian Fairy Tales, collected by Alexander Afrosniev, our boy. He's a Russian guy. We like that guy. He does a lot of good.
Well, they're all pretty awesome. Yeah.
They're all pretty awesome, but I like his style. But translated by Norbert Guterman. So thanks. Shout out to Goots for the translation. Gooter. Thanks, bro. Yeah.
This one's a thicker volume.
This is a tome. This is a tome. We're gonna have a lot of good Russian shit for you guys in the future. So hope you like some Russian stuff.
They're all pretty fucking dark.
Yeah, and we're also looking into some other cool stuff.
Yeah.
So
hopefully we get some other people on.
Yeah, we might be getting some guests soon. So look forward to that, and look forward to life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So don't forget to like, share, comment,
subscribe.
Notify if you want.
Notify
Not sure
us.
if that really even fucking works.
Yeah. Do creative rock drawings. Don't say high mythology.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Paint.
But not in the national forest because they
don't go fucking up some already done rock drawings. But paint a rock or some shit. Have fun. Have fun with it. Yeah. Well, thanks, folks, for listening. Yeah.
Have a great night. Dude, the dog farted.